All right, guys, welcome to episode 1 of the podcast with no name. So, if you don't know who we are, my name is J.R. Rivas. This is Phillip, Tran. We are business partners and entrepreneurs. And we decided to start a podcast to talk all things short-term rentals and long-term rentals and entrepreneurship, finance, etc. So in episode 1 of the podcast, we are going to just share our stories, talk about who we are, how we got here, and why you should honestly give a fuck about what we have to say. So, Phillip, do you want to start first and just give an intro? Who you are, how you got here?
So, it really started in entrepreneurship or life in general?
Just
going through the whole
as
life journey.
Far back as you want to go. The day you were born to now, in great detail.
So, growing up, I would say it was all football. I was really athletic, played football, played basketball. Never really knew what I wanted to do. Never really was good in school. I was just the typical jock, I would say. And started football when I was 8. A lot of people don't know about this, but I actually started football when my dad had cancer, lung cancer. And it was just a way for me to kind of get out of the house and do something that I enjoyed rather than going to school. And then growing up, I was fat. I was the slowest one on the team. I wanted to be a wide receiver. For anybody that doesn't know what a wide receiver is, it's basically you got to be one of the fastest dudes on the team. And I was the slowest. I was the fattest, and basically got made fun of. Like, dude, you're not gonna play receiver. My dad basically came to me and was like, hey, you got to play quarterback. You got to lose some weight. I actually had to lose 20 pounds in a month to make weight on a Pop Warner team.
How old were you?
I was 8.
Bro, so your dad body shamed you at 8 years old?
Yeah, I wasn't body shamed. It was actually the rule. I had to be 140 pounds to make weight. Basically, I was 8 years old. I was like 8 or 9 years old at 160.
Damn, that's crazy.
So every day at practice, everybody was practicing, and I had to wear trash bags, basically, to lose all the weight. And I just ran the entire practice. So once I grew out of that phase, I actually lost the 20 pounds, played football, didn't play it down. Didn't even touch the field. Then I basically moved into quarterback, grew up, went to high school. That's where I kind of excelled. Starting freshman year, I was like, okay, I really have something here. I can make something work. My parents started university.
So you played freshman football and you were quarterback?
Freshman football, and I had like 2 practices. The varsity coach came to me and was like, hey, you could be the varsity quarterback on the team as a freshman.
Damn.
And my dad was like, no, you're not doing that. He's like, you still need some developing. My dad was like my mentor the whole entire way. Obviously, my mom was there too, but my dad was like really invested. But basically, he told the coaches, he was like, nah, you're not playing football. You have to develop. You got to focus on school too. Like, mind you, my GPA is like 2.5. Like, I never gave a fuck about school at all. And then basically started training, played freshman year JV, then moved into varsity, got all this press going on, setting records in the school. A private school in the Bay Area contacted my dad and I and basically said, like, hey, we'll pay for your tuition to come here and play football. You'll get a scholarship, basically. Came there, played 2 years, ended up getting an offer from Cornell University, Ivy League. Didn't have the grades to go. And I basically took the SAT. They wanted a 1,400 SAT. And I was basically shy of that. So I was like, you know what? Honestly, I don't even want to go to Ivy League because it's just way too much work. And I was in a private school at that time. So I was like, dude, there's no way I'm going to go to private school. And then ended up going to community college in LA, played football there. And in the meantime, I'm like door dashing. I'm buying sneakers and reselling them. Basically, I would buy sneakers, Jordans. I was like a big Jordans fan. And wear them twice and then sell it, basically. For more than what it costs. And I would, like when you buy a certain amount, they'll be like, hey, if you buy a certain amount, we'll give you free shoe cleaners. So I'd buy the shoe with the shoe cleaner for like $200, and then I would resell the whole entire package for like $235, and then I'd pocket $35. So that's what I would do while I was in junior college, just living with the roommate. Moved to the East Coast. This is when I actually saw your program because I got a scholarship in the East Coast to go play football at Division II in New Hampshire, private college. Saw your ad, investing into your digital marketing program, scaled that solar agency, marketing agency up to like 60, 65K.
So at this point, you're like 21 ish.
Yeah. I'm like 21, turning 22.
Okay.
Got your program, scaled that up. And then when you shut down your program, I started my program, coaching agency owners on how I scaled so fast. And then right after that, I was like, I'm going to drop out of school. Shit's just way too busy. There's no way I can play football. There's no way I can.
Plus, you're also making more than like you would have made with your degree.
Yeah, and what changed, like what triggered me was when I had a one-on-one meeting with my head coach, and he was like, "So, are you fully invested into us?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Yeah, like, are you doing business? Are you doing football?" I'm like, "I'm doing both." He was like, "So, is what you're doing legit? Is it legal?" And I'm like, "Doing marketing for solar companies?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's like all online." And I'm like, "What do you mean? It's legit?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then next week I was like, I'm dropping out. Because after that I was like, he's not going to support what I'm doing. Although he was a great coach, I had great coaches. They weren't going to support you doing both as a quarterback of the school.
At this point, you're like the starting quarterback. They recruited you. You flew across the country.
Yep.
Like it's.
They invested a lot into me, basically getting me all the way to the East Coast. And they're like, "Hey, are you going to be half-half? Because we can't have you half-half." And then I just got kind of offended too, saying like, "Is what you're doing legit?" I'm like, I'm doing marketing for companies, for businesses, like brick and mortar businesses. And after that, I really had a thought about it. I was like, this honestly, like football is not a long-term thing. Football in school, like depending what you're doing in school, like if you're going to become a lawyer or a doctor, like that's fine. School, do it. But for me, I was doing business and marketing. At that point, I'm like in a marketing class, learning about like consumers and stuff like that, while I was like on my computer worrying about my marketing agency in a marketing class.
Yeah, I remember when we met, you were like, "Yeah, I gotta hurry up and like automate this, like build and automate this agency because I'm starting football again soon."
Yeah.
And I remember when you said that, like honestly, like the thought, I remember that moment vividly. We're on Zoom or whatever. The thought in the back of my mind was like, it was kind of like, this guy really thinks he's going to grow and scale and automate an agency like in like 3 months and then go play football.
Yo,
and just
you remember when
like,
you actually pitched me, you were like, "Hey, what's your biggest bottleneck right now?" I was like, I don't know. He's like, "Look, you dropped your calendar link. Let's get on the call." I had no idea what you're going to say. You jump on, you're like, "Dude, yeah, we can get you to 100K definitely before the season." And I was like,
I definitely did not say definitely.
You were like,
I never say that.
We could definitely do that by that. You should be shooting for 100K. Because I was like, I just want to automate it. 60K is fine. I just want to automate it.
Yeah, because my logic though is like, you were able to get to, I always say like, going from $0 to $10,000 a month is hard.
Yeah.
Going from 10 to 30 is a little bit easier. But going from 30 to 100 is the same as going from 10 to 30, just more.
Right.
More of
Right.
whatever you did to get there is the same. So
Right.
that's basically what my logic was.
Right. So basically you pitched me on that. And then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just, honestly, I didn't even like at that point. I was coaching already, moving to coaching. It was just, for me, the whole marketing agency world is just a whole different game. Like you actually have to love it in order to do it. For me, I care more about, working with people like how you were working with me, right? Like changing people's lives, getting them real results, right? Like what a company, like they're doing $10 million. If they're doing like $10 million a year, right? Let's say you get them an extra couple sales a month. The only difference you made is probably like, what, 50K?
No difference at all.
No, barely any difference. They don't appreciate you the same. You know what I mean? But if you help somebody leave their job and hit 10K a month, 20K a month, dude, they're going to love you for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just a totally different game. After that, so I dropped out, told my girlfriend, Monica, was like, "Hey, I'm dropping out of school." She was like, "Seriously?" She was like, "Yeah." Called my coaches, told them I'm dropping out. Called my mom, called my dad, told them I'm dropping out.
What was everybody's response?
The coaches took it horribly. My parents, they were totally fine, supported it. Monica supported it as well. And then I was like, "We're going to move next week." She's like, "To where?" I was like, "I don't know." And and my family's from California, so I was like, maybe California. We visited Denver for your event. So I was like, why don't we just move to Denver? for a year, see how it goes. And for me, at this point in my life, like it was in California, I was in the Bay Area my whole life, moved to LA, moved from LA back to the Bay, from the Bay to the East Coast. And at that point, I was just used to moving. Plus my whole entire life, like we moved a lot house to house. Like growing up, my parents were still trying to figure things out in the tech world. And we moved houses a lot and moved. So at that point, I was just used to it. Like it wasn't anything different. With Monica, it was a little bit different. When telling my girlfriend, like, hey, we're going to move next week, she was like freaking out. And I'm like, it's fine. We're going to move.
But she also followed you from California
to she did.
New Hampshire, which like.
Nothing there. You got to drive 45 minutes to Boston and then you have something. But basically, I was like, we're going to move to Denver next week. I don't know what apartment we're staying in. I don't know how, like, we got to ship my car. So we ended up moving to Denver. We get there. And we're just still not settled because like we have to move. It's just like been a whole long process. We don't know anybody there. My dad flew out, helped us moved in, and then the following week I think my mom came out too. So overall, for me, moving honestly formed who I am. I would say everywhere I went, it taught me different things, and it was different stages of my life. Like LA, I would say playing junior college football. I'm like, okay. I'm working towards a scholarship. Everything I'm doing is towards a scholarship. Get the scholarship, go over to college. Everybody's partying. Everybody's playing football. They're going to school. And I just really didn't fit in. I was like, I don't want to party. So we win a game, we lose a game. Everyone's like, let's go party. I'm like, that's not me. I'm going home. I'm chilling, working on the business. I'm trying to set myself up for the future while everybody's just, which is nothing wrong. Like, yeah, go ahead, have fun and party. But I think while you're trying to build your life and actually for me, my whole mindset was like, I'm going to sacrifice my 20s. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do everything it takes so that when I hit 30, I at least have some sort of foundation going on already. While other people will start building their life 28, 29, 30, which is, again, nothing wrong with that. It's just personal preference. And then once we get to Denver, that's how the whole Airbnb thing started rental arbitrage. I actually watched a YouTube video on how to get into real estate. And then I saw a YouTube video on the cheapest way to get into real estate. I was like, perfect, watching that video. They were saying how you can rent a house, talk to the landlord, get consent from them, and Airbnb it. $2,500 in rent or $3K in rent, whatever it is. Let's just use $3K. You make $8K on Airbnb, pay a cleaner $1K, you're pocketing the rest for that month. Basically, that's what it is in simple format. I remember I locked down a house. It was beautiful. I was super juiced. And then I saw a story of you furnishing your Airbnb. And I messaged you. I was like, hey, just locked down an Airbnb, rental arbitrage. Let's go. You were like, where? And you were like, I was like, here's the address. You're like, dude, did you know it's illegal to do Airbnb there?
Yeah, I was like, that's a no-go.
You're like, that's a no-go. And at that time, I already signed the lease and everything. And I'm freaking out because you were like, yeah, they probably not going to let you out of that. You were like, yeah, they could take you to court. You were like, bro, you were scaring the shit out of me. You were like, yeah, my friend said people go to court, like you could get fined. They can make you pay for it.
They do.
So I immediately called the landlord. I'm like, hey, like something has came up. I can't take it. What we talked about in terms of like me doing the Airbnb, it's actually illegal, and I don't want to run an illegal business through your property. And when I said that, she was like, it's fine. It's just unfortunate because I wasted 2 weeks and I took the property off. I was like, if you need any help, let me know. And then never talked to them again. Eventually found one in Arvada, did that. That one's actually doing really, really well. And then that's how we kind of met. We were just
because then you came to see my Airbnb. And we met at my event and like before that, but we started hanging out because you came to my Airbnb.
Yeah.
And then you came to like hang out and started putting up wallpaper and shit. And I was just like, all right, this guy's pretty cool. Like he doesn't just come and just mooch information from me. He's like helping me. I didn't even ask. And then you stayed like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right.
Bro, and then I remember we were setting up the Airbnb and you're like, dude, I've been at this for like 21 days now. And I'm like, bro, you don't even have a sofa. It's like, well, you had the sofa. You were just like, you were still putting things together. Your mural still getting set up. And me and Monica came over and we're like helping you set up. And then they went out and then we were just like watching UFC. And that's kind of how our friendship formed. And then we just picked each other's brains in terms of like, oh, Airbnb, and like you were asking me like, oh, how did you even approach the landlords and run arbitrage?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you like that model, and that's eventually down the line we were able to partner on this program essentially. And even though I asked you like 2 or 3 times and you said no, and then finally you were like, all right, let's do it. So that's really the full rundown of how it started from A through Z. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still kind of early in the, I would say, in the journey. I mean, we're both super young, so we're still both early.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my story is a little different. I was born in New York City, and by the time I was like, I'd say 12 years old, I had already lived in like New Jersey, Florida, 2 different times, Las Vegas, Colorado, and then we moved to Pennsylvania. My mom was a single mother, and I didn't meet my biological dad till I was like 8 years old. And she was like a waitress. So it was like me, my sister, my mom, my entire childhood. And we moved a lot, like a shit ton. I don't know why, but poor people just move a lot.
Bro, that's what I'm saying.
It doesn't make sense because you're like, you don't have money, so you should stay in one place. But like, it's like you move for opportunity. You move because like, your rent went up, and like it's your friend that lives in this state says like, oh, you can come stay with me, and I got a job for you. Like, there's just a lot of shit that happens.
Yeah.
And so I remember one time we lived in like a 1-room studio for like, it was in the back of a house. It was like an ADU kind of, but like attached, and it was super tiny.
It was in a garage?
I don't know. It was like, nah, it was just like the back of a house that they converted into like a little studio.
Dude, for us in like the Asian household, if there's an extra room that's not used, like just an extra space that's not used, my family's like big in construction. So the next day we're just like up building a room in there. So like most of the times we never use a garage. Like we turn the garage into a room into a unit to actually fit somebody in there and create more space. So I get what you're saying.
So so that was in Florida. And dude, I remember from like the time I was like 6 years old, like I remember just like I walked home from school from the day that I was like 5. Like I remember literally, I have a really vivid memory of my childhood. Like I can remember vividly back to like 4 years old. Like the preschool I went to, what my teachers looked like, what we did for fun. And I remember walking home by myself or like with some of my other friends that were also super young at like 5.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was just a smart kid. Like my mom was like, hey, anyone offers you candy, just stay the fuck away. And she would always tell me stuff like that. She's like, don't ever talk to anyone. If you're home alone, someone comes to the door, don't even check who it is. And we ended up moving from New Jersey to Vegas to Tampa to Colorado, and then Colorado to Pennsylvania by the time I was 12. And we moved to Pennsylvania finally because I had family there that had moved from, like my mom's sister both my parents were born in Dominican Republic. My mom's sister had come over from DR. They had moved from New York City. So we're like, all right, cool. Family support. We get to Pennsylvania, and we're like living with my aunt and shit. My mom ends up buying a house. This is during like 2008. So this is like when they were giving houses to people that I'm like thinking back. I'm like, how did my mom get a house? Like she had just moved to the area, did not have like 2 years of employment history. Like,
she was like a waitress, right?
Yeah. Went from being, at that point she had moved from like, she was working like a natural food store. Yeah. And then she had gotten a job at like a warehouse or something in Pennsylvania. And they're like, here's a mortgage. So we move into this house, but it's like built in like 1904. We're living there. By the time I'm like, at this point I'm like 13, 14. One of the pipes like burst or something. Like I don't remember what happened to it, but basically we didn't have running water. Yeah. And we would get some water sometimes, but it was like very low pressure. Like not enough to like even like brush your teeth or anything. And we lived without running water for like 6 months. We would just like go to my aunt's house to shower or whatever, or we would just figure things out, like get water, put it in a pan, boil it, just do stuff like that. Damn. And after that, my mom got a job, and she would work from like 3 to 11. So I would come home every day from school, and she wouldn't be there. And then I would, by the time that I was sleeping, she would get home. So like, and then by the time I wake up, she's sleeping. So it was like we never really even saw each other except.
How was your guys' relationship like growing up?
It was good. I mean, she just worked all the time. Right. Like I did recently, and I think anybody listening should like have this conversation with your parents. But like I asked her like what was it like the day I was born? Like everything, like what were you wearing? Where was this? What were you thinking? Was I on time? Like what time of day was I born? What was the very next thing? Who watched me when I was a baby?
Right.
And it was like really insightful because I was just like, damn, like this is hard.
Yeah,
like
because you see what they go through.
You're making like 24, 30K a year with a kid by yourself. Tough. And we'll talk about my dad in the future, but I didn't meet him till I was 8. Long story. But so essentially it was just me, my mom, and my sister growing up.
Right.
At like 16, I just got interested in entrepreneurship. And I was just like, I remember we had like a career day at school. And this guy came in, and this dude was a millionaire. He just like it was kind of funny. He would take $2 bills to schools and then give them to kids.
Right.
And the whole philosophy, and he like wrote a book, and it was about how he like started with $2 in his pocket, and now he's a millionaire. And this dude had a plane, was super legit. And he comes to our school for like a career day, because I went to like high school in like the hood. Like some of my high school experiences, when I talk about them, like I thought everybody's high school was like this, but nah. So he gives us this sheet, and it's like these are all the professions and what they make, and it was like everything from like, I don't know, an assistant to like a doctor and everything in between. And all the salaries ranged from like 50, 30, maybe 35 to like 200. And then I like literally went all the way to the right column, went to the income, went straight down, and tried to find like the highest earning professions. And it was like doctor, lawyer, engineer.
You're
that
like, well, I'm not any of those.
Yeah, and I was like, my GPA was like 2.4, and I hated school. Like I hated school. And but I was never like dumb. Like I was always very curious, and I could figure out anything that I put my mind to. I was just like, I just knew like I just wasn't gonna get where I wanted to go with this formula. And I started talking to my guidance counselor, and to this day I troll him, and I'm like, yo, just bought another house. No college degree yet though. Text him? Yeah, we talk all the time.
Damn.
Shout out to Jeffrey Penizzato. No, he's really cool though. Like now he's like, you know, he still will tell me like I need to go to college, but he's very supportive now.
He's like, he's like, go get your master's.
He's like followed my journey. But anyways, so I'm like depressed. I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna be any of these things, and like all of these require a degree. And I was just smart. Like I knew like $50,000 a year after taxes, health insurance, a mortgage payment, a car payment was like dog shit.
You're left with like 20K.
Exactly. Less. So I just knew that from watching, from just, I don't know, I was very observant. And so I go up to the guy, and I was like, hey, all these like, there's only like 3 that make 6 figures on this whole list.
He's like, what else you got?
And yeah. And he was like, well, there's another thing that's not on that list. And I was like, what? And he was like, oh, it's what I am. It's called an entrepreneur. And I was like, how does that work? And then he's like, I don't know what he did, but he's like, I made a lot of money in the 90s, literally answering a phone call and then transferring them to another phone from my house. And this was like in the 90s, nobody worked from home.
So like call center, basically.
I don't know what he did, but he was like, yeah. So I just, found an opportunity, and I started a business, and he's like, now I own a plane. And he was like, I never went to school except to learn how to fly my plane. Yeah. I remember those words vividly, because I was like, all right, this is like hope for me. And at this point, I had never met anybody in my entire life that had even, the only people I knew that had graduated college were like my teachers.
Right.
So I never met a millionaire. I never met like anybody that had made a decent amount of money except this guy. And I'm like, all right, like he's, average looking dude. He's saying like he did this, like I was interested. And he gave out his book and stuff, and he gave us all the $2 bill. And then I went home, and I just started doing all this like research. And this was like, YouTube was like kind of YouTube at the time was only used for like music.
Yeah.
Like nobody was really like looking for information on YouTube. It was just like funny videos, viral videos, and like music videos. So I like started doing research, and I found like all these books. And I never read a book in my life that I wasn't required to read. And I find like Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week and Rich Dad Poor Dad.
How old?
I was 17.
Okay.
And I read The 4-Hour Work Week, and I was like, all right. I just, at that point, like, like the most gullible people are people who want that outcome so bad that they're like, they'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
That was me at the time. Like I was like, I don't care.
4-hour work
I don't
week.
care if this is real or fake. Like, just the idea that there's a 1% chance it could be real is good enough for me to try this. So it just gave me hope. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then he was telling me like exactly what I wanted to hear. He's like, school is bullshit, student debt is bullshit, buy assets, not liabilities. You'll never get rich working for someone. You'll never get rich being he says you'll never get rich being self-employed either. He's like, you have to be an investor. And I was like, cool. Well, nowhere in here does he said, and he says like his rich dad went to college and did all this stuff. His poor dad didn't. He was an entrepreneur. He found his own way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, I'm graduating high school and I'm telling everybody, I'm like, yo, fuck this college bullshit. I'm like, literally, I was like 17. I'm like, I'm going to start my own business. And everybody's like clowning me senior year.
Yeah.
In my yearbook to this day, I still have it. Like 10 people say, oh, have fun trying to be a millionaire. Good luck on being a millionaire, blah, 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 blah,
Bro, you
blah.
should have saved that book.
I have it at my house right now. And the funny thing is, like, half these people have messaged me, even the ones that like went off to be like a chemical engineer and like do well.
Like, hey, what do you
have
do?
messaged
Hey,
me and been like, hey, I'm always looking for extra income. Like, can you show me how you're buying a house or whatever?
Yeah.
And I've been gracious enough to most of them. Like, I'll give them advice or give them a book or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I saw this, like, I was like, this is gonna happen. Like, when I just had massive self-belief at that level, because I was just like, I don't know, I had like, the world hadn't like beat me up. So I was like 17 and I was like, although like I had failed at a lot of things at that point, like I sucked at basketball. I played sophomore basketball. I scored 12 points all year.
Right.
And I barely ever got to play. Like, I literally would and then I ran track. I sucked at that. And I never had like no one ever really taught me, like, thinking back, no one taught me like the values of sports that you learn, like hard work and don't give up and all that kind of stuff. To me, sports was just a way to like get out of class and just kind of like have fun. Like, I didn't. Yeah. When I got to high school basketball and I saw how seriously like the coaches took it, I was like, holy shit! Like, I was like, I'm not ready for this at all. So so at that point, I started a fucking tax business at 18, and my logic, I had no money, and this is where I always say, like, if you don't have money or resources resources, you have to be resourceful.
Yeah. And
at the time, I read this book. So I had come out of high school, and I'm looking for like, what am I going to do with my life? Mm-hmm. And all my friends are going to college, and I was like, yo, I got 4 years to figure it out before these motherfuckers get out of college. And if I'm still figuring it out by then it's going to be sad. So
you had the prove them wrong mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. 100%.
So would you say most of your mindset at that age and stage is you had your friends in the back of your mind, like, I can't let them say they got me. Like,
yeah, and the majority of my close circle friends, they weren't doing shit. They were just like, we would skip school, they would smoke weed, party on the weekends.
That's typical.
It was just typical. Like, none of them really went to college of my immediate friends.
Right.
Like, one step out of like the people I hung out every day, those were the people that were like, yeah, okay. Because they also saw like who I was at the time.
Right.
So I get out of high school, I'm like, I'm going to learn how to do taxes. And I just thought about it and I was like, okay, I started Googling like, how much does a car wash cost? How much does a restaurant cost? And it's like 1.4 million, 5 million, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, what can I start with, like, not a lot of money? And my friend's mom had a tax office, and we would like go hang out at her office sometimes at night. And so I was like, okay, I could start this business with like $10,000. I was like, all you need is some computers and a space.
Yeah.
And at the time in the city that I lived, like Allentown, Pennsylvania, rent was cheap, especially even for commercial spaces. So I was like, all right, I could probably save up 10 grand. And I didn't even think like, you don't know how to do taxes. I was just like, start the place and then just figure that out later. And I was just like, it can't be that hard. Like, I was like, it's probably, now knowing what people charge for taxes and how easy it is. Number one, software does everything. You do the data entry and it does everything else. So I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, I can learn. So I found a tax class, enrolled in it, and then they canceled it because I was the only person signed up. And then I found another one, and then that guy ended up hiring me to do taxes for him. So he had a 10-week course, and he had just opened the place, and he hired me. He was a CPA. And I start asking him all these questions, and I'm like, and this was a franchise, so national company, 4,000 locations. He hires me. I start asking him all these questions about how do you run this? How did you start this? And he's like, oh, if you want more information, just put your email online and they'll send you like a brochure.
This was Jackson Hewitt, right?
No, Liberty Tax.
Liberty Tax, yeah.
I didn't want to give them any free clout, but thank you. So the next day, this guy calls me. He's like, hey, I'm from Liberty Tax, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I'm only like 18, and he's like, ask me how old I am. I'm like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 58. Last year I was 57 and the oldest man to try out for the Olympics in wrestling. So don't tell me anything about age, because I used to work on a Navy ship and I had guys your age dealing with nuclear weapons.
Damn.
So literally, like, bro, just even now, like, we get a prospect on the phone that's 18. We're like,
we're not gonna say, hey, you can't do this.
We're not gonna say you can't do this, but I'm also like, okay, this kid's 18. Like, he probably doesn't have the funds. He'd probably and this was expensive. Yeah. Like, it was $40,000, and then you needed 25 operating.
But we also know a lot of people on our network that are 18, 19. Like, we have a 19-year-old. We have a 19-year-old kid on, not kid, but we have a 19-year-old guy on our team who's super smart, and it's like.
But at the time, like, it was like, this was like 2013. This was like pre 18-year-olds making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's like, if you're the right person for this, like, we'll make it happen. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but let's do it. So I go back to the guy that I'm working for, and then he's like, hey, why don't you buy one of my offices? And I was like, because I have no money. And then he's like, well, I could, like, maybe we could work out a deal.
Yeah.
So at this time I had maybe like $3,000 to my name. Mm-hmm. And we worked out a deal, and he wanted like $15,000 up front. And it was going to be like seller financing, which now, knowing what I know now, most businesses are sold through seller financing. Right. But at the time I was like, okay. So I go to like all these banks, and this is 2012, I think, at the time, 2012, 2013. And so the market had crashed like 4 or 5 years before. Economy's still recovering. It's still hard to get a loan. So I make a business plan, and I go to all these banks. And one of the banks was like, you're the most prepared person I've ever seen, but you're also 19, and you have no collateral. You have nothing. Like, we're not going to give you this loan.
They just don't trust you.
It was just like, I don't know. It was just a tough time, like, in the economy.
Right.
I mean, even today, it might be hard to get a loan as a 19-year-old. So I go back to the guy, and at this time I read the book, The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And he talks a lot about negotiating, and he's like the ultimate finesser. There's actually a funny story in the book where he talks about, like, he brings an investor out to one of his job sites, mm-hmm. and he calls everybody on the job site, and he's like, hey, I'm bringing an investor out. Just start moving dirt around. He gets all these random people to start moving dirt around to look busy. And the investor comes to the site, and he's like, hey, this is the busiest job site I've ever seen, but why did that guy just take dirt from that pile and move it back, and then move it back to the same pile? And he was like, oh, I don't know. He's probably just testing something. So in that book, he says, like, if you, and this is like, regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, like, he's made some moves in business.
Yeah.
So he says that when he wants to do a deal, he just decides what he wants, and he just keeps pushing until he gets the deal. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I just, like, kept pushing this guy. And I was like, dude, if I don't buy this, he had to sell it. Like, he was at a point where he had to sell it. I was like, if I don't buy this, who's going to buy it? So he has to make a deal here. So he comes back to me. He's like, all right, if you could put down $5,000, I'll finance you the rest. First, I'll finance you 6 months, and in 6 months you owe me $25,000, and then I had to pay him whatever amount, 15 or 20, for like the next 4 years. So
did you take it?
Yeah, I took it.
So negotiated, bro.
I negotiated it down to there. So we closed the deal. So I give this guy all my money, and now I have this business, but I don't have any money. So I'm like, there's rent that's due. Like, first, imagine, like, so we bought the place, and I assumed his lease, mm-hmm. but he didn't tell the landlord until I signed. So I hit up the landlord, and I'm like, hey, I just signed, because I knew if we did it beforehand, the landlord was going to want to credit check me and all this stuff.
Right.
But I knew if we got in, then the landlord would be like, oh, well, I'm stuck with this guy, so whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And then the landlord hits me up. He's like, I need first month plus deposit, blah, blah, blah. It was like cheap. It was like $2,000. So I take out a 0% credit card. I run it through my own merchant processor. And then I run enough to pay the landlord for like 3 months.
So how much in debt are you in right now?
At that point, well, I owed that guy, I think I bought it for like $80,000. So I owed him whatever. Like I put down like 5, so I owed him like 75. And then I took out those credit cards. So I'm like,
so you really thought this tax business was gonna blow up?
Yeah, I was pretty.
You're like to the moon.
At that time, I was just so driven though. I was like, I don't even care what I sell. Like I didn't care what the product was. I was like, I could have a seashell business. I could have an ice to Eskimo business, and I'm gonna make it work. Because I was like, I just know I'm gonna hustle.
Yeah.
So first year, so the way the tax season works is January to April, you make all the money basically because that's tax season. I signed on this place in like October, November. Actually, I think it was like August, yeah, because I had a little bit of time. And so I had all this time before we started making money. Mm-hmm. So I ended up like finding people that did taxes and doing all this stuff. And then I increased the revenue of that place 60% the first year. Paid him cash like 4 months later, whatever.
What do you say?
He was like, cool, do you want to buy the other 2? So then that's what happened. I bought the other 2. And then I'm like 19, 20 at this point. 3 tax offices, 50 something employees.
Yeah.
And I don't know like what the fuck I'm doing with my life. Like every single day it's like fires. Like I hired all these people, all like 50 people, like basically in one shot by the next tax season.
Yeah.
And I did that for like 1 year. I grew the offices collectively like 17%. And then I was like, this is not it. I was like, this tax thing is not it. And I saw that like TurboTax was blowing up at the time.
All right.
And I saw less people were doing their taxes in person. Because
you just do it online. And TurboTax can
most people
do it for you.
Exactly. Yeah. But nobody had really started to figure out online taxes yet. Like it was very few people that did their taxes online. So I was like, I need to figure something else out. So I sell that off. I saw all 3 offices, and I moved to Virginia Beach to work for the corporate company doing sales. And then I bought another office from them in Virginia Beach, which was where their headquarters was. This office was like 17 years old. Run that for 1 year, grow at 10%. The company, the industry as a whole, flatlined. Like H&R Block, all those people flatlined. So I was like, I'm like 22 at this point.
How are they still alive today?
I mean, there's still a lot of people that like, dude, if somebody's been with their CPA for a while, like they're just going to keep going to that.
Yeah.
Plus, like it's easy to do your taxes if you have a simple return. But like for me and you, properties, S corps, partnerships, blah, 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 we still need like a physical person.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but our clientele was like the families that made like 30, 40, 50K a year, a couple kids, very simple tax return. So, I sell that office to my neighboring franchisee. And I like finance her. And so I'm like, I just want to get out. Like she gave me no money up front. She's going to pay me like over a few years. Ends up never paying me.
Right.
And at this point, like, I was just happy that she was going to take it off my hands, honestly. So I moved back to Pennsylvania. At this point, I'm 23. Move in with my mom because I'm like, I got to plan my next
back
one.
with your mom?
Back with my mom.
At 23.
At this point, too, all my friends from high school are now graduating college. But I had already lived like 30 lives.
Probably reading that yearbook and be like, fuck.
Yeah, so everybody, I was quiet, bro. You didn't see me posting on social media.
Deactivated accounts.
Bro, I started driving because I was like, I'm not getting a fucking job.
Change your name.
I was like, that's the one thing I'm not doing is getting a fucking job.
Yeah.
So I started driving for Uber, and then I started going to estate sales and buying up like dead people's stuff and reselling it on Amazon and eBay and Craigslist.
Yeah.
So I would find like chainsaws that were still in the box and stuff, and I would get it for like $10, sell it for like $50. So I started making some money with that plus driving for Uber.
Yeah.
Then I start a podcast actually interviewing people that are making money online because I was like, all right, I've always wanted to make money online. I need to find out if this is real. And I start interviewing people, and I find this one guy on a podcast that I listen to, Dan Henry. Dan Henry had just got started, which those of you guys don't know, Google Dan Henry marketing right now. Yep. He's like he blew up into this big time like internet marketing guru, and I had found him like before he even started doing that. And he's like, hey, I used to have a bar and I grew it with Facebook ads. And I'm like, tell me more about these Facebook ads. And he's like, yeah, he had a couple people paying him like $1,500 a month to do Facebook ads for him. So I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, I'm coming out with a course in a few months. If you pay right now, I'll give you a discount. So I get in the program. I'm like the 10th person or whatever in this program. And this was probably like March of 2016. Yeah. Takes me all the way till like September to like make my first internet dollar. In the meantime, I'm just like hustling on Uber, rummaging through the remains of dead people, not the actual remains, the property remains of dead people, reselling that. But I'm like living back in my hometown, which I just lied low. I was like, no one's gonna see that I moved back here.
Not hanging out with anybody.
So then I land my first client, chiropractor, $1,500 a month, doing Facebook ads for him. This dude was in like North Carolina, middle of nowhere. A week later, I land 2 more. I think he referred me both of those people. Mm-hmm. So now I go from 0, and I was charging them all $1,500 a month, to like $4,500 a month. And I'm like, all right, cool. 2 months later, I'm at like $14,000 a month.
Yep.
I moved the fuck out right away. I moved to Florida. So I stayed with my mom maybe like 3-4 months. Moved to Florida. Literally, I call my friend up at the time. I'm like, yo, I'm moving to Florida on Thursday. It's like Sunday.
And this is when it was easy too, like Facebook ads.
Yeah, I caught the opportunity at the right time.
Lead to a spreadsheet.
Yeah, have them it was super easy.
Yeah, they don't have to do anything.
I was making $1,500 a month off these chiropractors, and it was taking me like 1 hour a month maybe per account. So I moved to Florida, and then I launched a program. Boom, first month program blows up, $35,000 in the bank. January 2017. I was in crazy debt from like when I was I didn't really have income for a while. I had put like a lot of stuff starting the tax business on my credit card, starting the other 2, and I probably had like I bought a car that was like $10,000, financed it. Car takes a shit like 6 months later, so I'm like making that car payment, and I have to get a new car payment because I'm broke. I can't afford to buy another car cash, so I'm making 2 car payments. Now I have 2 car loans, then all these credit cards, and I'm like $30,000 in debt at this point. I make 35, pay that all off completely, and I was like, nice. All right, now it was just a huge sigh, and I'm still like, dude, I'm still at this point like 23-ish.
That's my age right now.
Yeah, huge sigh of relief. I'm like, all right, now we can like play ball. So I started like doing all these like workshops, and I would always like go into these big Facebook groups and post my results. And since I was like so young and nobody had figured out like digital marketing yet, people would start paying me like $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour just to help them out. So eventually that morphed into my coaching program, with which I met you, which was my first business that I did over $1 million in 1 year in, which from the day that I started entrepreneurship, which when I was 18, it took me like 8 years to figure out how to, 7 years to figure out how to make $1 million in a year. So then I was running that program for a while, doing the virtual assistants, blah, blah, blah. The methods that we were using changed a lot and just weren't working as good anymore. And I also felt like the opportunity was getting close to its like shelf life. And so then I stopped doing that, and I'm kind of looking for, like, I had some money, obviously, because I had run this business for a while, super profitable. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a real estate investor. So I was like, I need to take the money that I have and invest it so that I can just cover my base living expenses. So I started investing in real estate. I started doing partnerships in real estate. I started launching Airbnbs. And now I have 14 total units. And then we partnered, like you said, and launched the Airbnb program, which, I mean, that's blown up. Like we launched it 6 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah,
over 120K now.
Yeah, 120K in revenue in like 6 weeks. Yeah. And we were talking about like how that was possible. Yeah. And I think that, like, when I look at you, I'm like, dude, you got lucky in the sense that you picked good opportunities early on. Like, I picked shitty opportunities when I was like your age. Yeah. And I'm 27 now. You picked the right opportunities and you worked hard at it. Yeah. I picked the wrong opportunities and worked hard at it. Yeah. And at the time, I didn't realize like there was levels of opportunity. Like, there's a big ceiling. For example, if you're going to be a doctor or whatever, there's a cap, or a salesperson or an engineer, whatever, or a lawyer. There's a hard cap on what you can make. Yeah. Like, you always have to trade your time for money. Well, the same way there's caps in entrepreneurship. Like, there's level 2 opportunities, level 5 opportunities, level 10 opportunities. That's why software companies are valued in the billions of dollars when they have like $10 million in revenue, because of the size of the opportunity and the margins and stuff like that, right? Whereas I would consider like a restaurant, I think it's a relatively shitty business model because your margins are super small. You can only fit a certain amount of people in your restaurant. Whereas if you guys have read one of my favorite business books, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and he talks about, he was one of the co-founders of PayPal. And he's like, when we started PayPal probably made more money than all of the restaurants in San Francisco combined. Or all the restaurants downtown or something. So it's because of the vehicle, the opportunity vehicle that they're in. So I read that book and I was like, I need to pick my opportunity vehicles better. Yeah. But that's why like software is like, I would consider software companies like a level 10 opportunity because you can scale software without adding more costs. You can scale users with much less cost. Whereas with a restaurant, in order to scale a restaurant, you need a second location or you need to find a way to cram more people in there, or you need to raise it. Like there's a hard ceiling on the scalability. So I feel like that was the case in my tax business. The number one entity in our business was like, this guy had like 30 offices. I would be surprised if he netted $1 million a year. I think maybe he did like 5 or 6
offices.
million. Yeah. And they were like major headache. This dude actually got raided too by the FBI because that's another story too for another day. But he got raided. Like the FBI showed up at his office and like one of his offices because they were doing some fraud. I don't know if he knew or didn't know, but still, like it's a lot of shit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's like your strength, but that's something that took me a while. I don't know if you just like stumbled into it or got lucky or whatever, if you like knew, but a lot of people I think just waste their life in the wrong opportunity. Yeah. And one thing I always say is like, you can be a level 5 entrepreneur and in a level 10 opportunity and crush it. Yeah. Or you could be a level 10 entrepreneur, like a level 10 entrepreneur in a level 3 opportunity, which is what I would consider a restaurant, is still going to do well. Like you're going to be the founder of Panda Express or whatever, Ruth's Chris, own 100 McDonald's or whatever. You're still going to do well. But I think that level 10 entrepreneur in a level 8 or 9 opportunity would 100x.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, with the opportunities that you were talking about, it was more so of following just the calling. Like, for example, I was like, okay, how can I start a business with literally no money? And it was the digital marketing space, right? You like just messaging people, start trying to get clients, you'll get $1,500 just like that. Like to me, if things were to go to zero, the one thing I would do if I'd have to start over again is just start messaging clients and see what service they need.
I would strip.
I would be a barber. I'd be a barber. For anybody that doesn't know, I cut JR's hair and my own hair. But basically, it started at the marketing agency, and then people started messaging me, hey, like, can you coach me? I'll pay an hour of your time. And then I was like, okay, there's a bunch of people paying me for an hour of my time.
That's when you know you have a good thing, a good product, when you're not even selling it and people like
exactly.
want it.
And then so I started the program, and then eventually I was like, okay, the number one thing you don't want to do is keep all your money in the bank. Like, I need to start investing somehow, some way. And then that's how I stumbled upon real estate and Airbnb. And then people started messaging me like, hey, how did you do this Airbnb stuff? And then I started seeing TikTok blow up. So then I launched ads on TikTok to see who else needs help on Airbnb. And then it kind of just blew up. So I would say the number one thing is following the calling. Like, it literally led me to that. And I'm not sitting there being like, oh yeah, like, I'm just going to sit back and not take that risk and try to start another thing. Yeah. A lot of people will. You know what I mean? You never know what can happen.
But also, like, okay, when I was like 18, people were like, oh, I remember this girl I worked with. She was such a fucking bitch. I hate her. I hope she watches this. I hate her so much. She's like, I'm telling her my idea. And I mean, granted, I'm the fucking busboy at this like restaurant. And she's like a server. So at the time, I think like the servers are like God. Like they make so much money compared to me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to start a tax business. And she's like, isn't that risky? And I was like,
hell yeah.
Yeah, I was like, the way I thought about it, I was like, risky is going down a path that you know you're 100% going to be miserable if you get that, which was how I looked at school.
Yeah.
To me, that's risky.
Yeah.
But I looked at what I was doing as like less risky because I was like, that way I'm 100% sure I'm going to be a miserable piece of shit my whole life.
Yeah.
If I at least do this way, like I honestly I would rather make $300 a week my entire life.
Yeah.
And do it on my own terms with the hope that one day I could make $1 million than make $150,000 a year and hate my life and know that I'm going to be stuck doing this forever.
Yeah.
So at the time I was like, risky to me is like doing what I know is not going to work and hoping that it works.
Yeah, dude. I think that's where we relate to. I totally left this part out on my story, but my family they were immigrants too. Like they grew up in Vietnam. My grandpa was in the Vietnam War. My grandma and grandpa are both still alive today, but he was in the Vietnam War. My dad had 6 siblings, so a total of 7 of them. And then they went on a boat. They left the Vietnam War, went to Hong Kong, and then they went to Hawaii. And then when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, my mom and dad ran away, left California because one, they were super young. They were like 18 having me. And then also going to California had more opportunities. So when somebody says like, is that risky? I'm like, my family did all of that for me to take risks.
Yeah, it's
you know
almost
what I mean?
like an insult if you don't do something with your life.
It's like my family did all of that shit and went through all of that for me to be able to have the opportunities to take risks.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to sit back and not take risks because they were the ones that are providing it for me. You know what I mean? So like when somebody says, hey, is that risky? It's like, hell yeah, it's risky. But it's what I'm supposed to do. It's what they want me to. It's what it's the reason why they came here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
feel like business, like, dude, you grow up so much faster.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I remember so my tax office was in the hood, like hood. The average income in the area was 20,000 household, meaning like mom, dad, fucking Uncle Bubba and shit all together under one roof, $20,000.
Uncle Bubba.
So next door to us was a barbershop. It was really like us on the corner, a little like 99-cent discount store.
Yeah.
That was like the doorway was like this wide, and a barbershop next to that. Busiest day of the year. Two guys get in an argument at the barbershop. One of them pulls out a knife, stabs the other guy to death. I watched his fucking body get carried out on a stretcher. And at that point, all my employees were like, yo, I don't feel safe working here anymore. And I'm
it's like right outside your office.
And I'm trying to like lie to them and be like, oh, you know, it's a one-time thing. Like, it's fine. Like, use the buddy system when walking to your car and all this shit. And yeah, like seeing that, I was like, yo.
You really told them to use the buddy system. Walk into your car.
I mean, what was I gonna say? Like, yeah, I don't feel safe here either.
Hey, whoa. Use the buddy system. Don't go out there alone.
And we had this promotion where we would give people $50 cash if they filed their tax return. It was kind of like an advance on their return, but we had it in cash, like $50 bill when you get your taxes done. And our fee came out of your tax return. Yeah. So we're in the hood. And the store is actually still there to this day, 12th and Hamilton in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And we're promoting to everybody that we have a ton of money. Yeah. And we're like every day we have like thousands of dollars in cash. Mm-hmm. And I was so sure like, oh, we're going to get robbed one day. So we like have all this money on hand. Everybody knows it. Like, we're actively promoting it. 2 doors down, there's a dude that just got stabbed. And everybody's like, and I'm the youngest person in the business. Out of the 50-something people, I was the youngest one.
You're like 18, 19.
Yeah, the oldest person was like 64.
Yeah.
And I'm like his boss at like 19. So it just forced me to like grow up really fast because I was just like, dude, I like, you know, this is real. Like, I'm these people's boss. Like, they rely on me or whatever. So I feel like that was something that's like, was more valuable than any education I could have gotten, college or the real world or whatever.
Yeah. I think my real world education was when, again, like my dad had cancer twice. Okay. So basically growing up for like a span of 3 to 4 years, my mom was taking care of my dad, basically helping recover and go to chemotherapy. And I have a younger brother. He's now the middle child. So Alan, growing up, I'm like, dude, like this kid is like deer in the headlights. Like, there's no guidance. Like, my dad's sick, mom's taking care of him, so I had to take care of him, dude. And there's like funny stories of like basically like us going into their rooms and like sneaking coins so that we can go get like Coke and shit at not like Coca-Cola.
I was like, damn, you're doing blow at like 13.
Coca-Cola at the park and shit, because like, bro, we had no money. Like, it's just and that was like, I had to wake up because like, dude, I had to cook for him, I had to teach him homework when I didn't even know shit myself on homework. Like, you know, do our laundries and shit. And I basically was taking care of a kid at like 8 to 12 years old. And that was when I like woke up and was like, dude, this is real and I have to grow up super fast. So that's when it led me to like when I got to college and everybody, I just felt like I was 3 or 4 years ahead of everybody. Basically.
Yeah, that's how I felt like in high school or like after high school.
Yeah.
Right after high school.
Exactly. Like I love partying now. I love doing a lot of stuff, but it's like, it doesn't feel right for me to be in the position I was in to be doing that. Again, like it was just thinking more advanced, thinking more on the future rather than like where I was at. Because I was scared. I was like, dude, I don't like school. I don't know. I'm going to get a degree in business, but that doesn't guarantee me anything. And then that's when I basically stumbled upon the whole entire journey that I went through.
Yeah, I always say like poverty and adversity builds character.
Exactly.
In kids for sure. Like I remember, if you guys were ever Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fans, there's this episode with Aunt Viv, and she's like, sometimes we want to give our kids everything that we didn't have, that we forget to give them what we did have. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, that's so true.
That's
like,
so true, yeah.
I'm like, dude, when you're a kid, being poor is like, it's just normal. Like, you don't know, there's no contrast. So it's just, it's fine. Like, everybody's like, I want to give my kid everything. Like, no, dude, my kid's not getting shit. Like, I die, my money is not going to, I'm spending all that shit before I die. Or I'm giving it away.
The rest is donated.
Yeah, like, because, dude, I don't know. I can't be
it's
dude, honestly, like I have less respect for somebody that their parents handed them everything. Yeah. I'm like, I got plenty of friends, I get along with them and everything, but I'm like, you had a huge, like, we started the race back here, you started way the fuck up here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm like, why? Like, I'll give my kid lessons and knowledge and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But if I can give them what's in my mind, why would I need to give them money? Because I've given them the tools to do it themselves.
Exactly, dude. And it's like there's just certain, it's the little things too. Like, for example, I'd get home from school. My dad has this like chain. It's like a Buddha chain that he always wore. I get home from school one day, it's gone off his neck. I'm like, yo, damn, we're down bad right now. Like, this is rough. And then it's like I come in my room, my piggy bank's gone. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, and it just gives you a wake up call. I was like, this is reality. And you like, when you get older, you look back and you're like, we went through all of that for me to, again, not to take risks. Yeah. Like, you got to take risks because you got to be that one, because they're basically trying to fund your life and also trying to raise you, and you play part of that. Like, having 2 children, and at the time my younger brother wasn't born yet, but having 2 children and then, trying to feed the family and paying, medical bills and stuff, it's like, it's not cheap, especially back in those days too. So, dude, I feel you on all of that.
Yeah, so I think we should wrap up here, and we have so much more to talk about, but thank you guys if you tuned into episode 1 of the podcast that has yet to be named. If you can help us think of a name, we would appreciate it.
Drop the names in the comments.
But thank you so much for tuning in, and we're going to start doing this. We're doing this each and every week here in the studio, so we'll have consistent content coming out, and make sure to, whatever the call to action on the platform that you're watching this is, please do that. Like, subscribe, whatever, comment, and we'll see you guys next week.
Follow us at the JR Rivas on Instagram, and it's Phillip Tran on Instagram as well.